I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this video, but you know what? That's okay by me. Today I'm gonna be showing you guys 5 cars you really shouldn't buy. This should be good. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Christian. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe for more weekly automotive content. Now let's begin. The first car is the Mazda RX8. If you ever looked into buying this car, you might have noticed that they sell for very cheap, even the ones with relatively low miles. Don't get baited. The RX8 is a perfect example of cheap to buy but expensive to drive, starting with its main issue, the 1.4 liter rotary engine, which struggles to last a long time. In fact, there are reports of certain Mazda RX8s having their engine replaced as early as 30,000 miles. The engine of the RX8 failed so often that Mazda extended the powertrain warranty to 8 years, 100,000 miles, and on top of that, a facility was built here in the US specifically to handle the large amount of engine rebuilds. Another issue you might experience when you buy an RX8 is how easy you can flood the engine with fuel. For example, if you were to cold start an RX8 and immediately turn it off without letting the engine warm up, you'll most likely flood the engine, which will result in having to tow it to the nearest mechanic shop that can deflood it. And that is not a cheap service. Some other notable concerns when owning an RX8 is excessive oil consumption, a weak starter, below average fuel efficiency, and a faulty catalytic converter. A cheap Mazda RX8 doesn't really sound that cheap anymore, does it? While yes, running costs can be expensive, I will say the following. Those that do own an RX8 enjoy the hell out of them. A friend of mine is on his 3rd engine, and by the looks of it, he'd be perfectly okay with a 4th engine. I've actually driven one myself, and pushing it to its 9,500 RPM redline definitely gave me a rush. If you want to get one, make sure you have a rotary specialist inspect it, and make sure to get a compression test. And if you can, try to avoid the 2004 model, as those had the most issues. My question to you is, would you get one? The second car is a Range Rover. My guess is that 9 out of 10 of you knew this car would make it on the list. Honestly, it's impossible not to include it, especially when it comes to the 3rd generation model. There are many horror stories online from Range Rover owners, especially those that are no longer under warranty. One of the biggest issues is the Range Rover's air suspension, which is a bit of a sweet and sour feature. If you've ever been in a Range Rover equipped with an air suspension, you know what I mean when I say it's one of the smoothest and most comfortable riding experiences ever. That's the sweet part. Now on to the sour part. The air suspension is known for having a high rate of failure, leaving the Range Rover awkwardly sagging to one side. In fact, it's so bad that many owners choose to replace the air suspension with traditional coil springs. Transmission issues have also been widely reported, along with common engine leaks. With a little bit of research, you'll find out that Land Rover in general always sits at the bottom of a list when it comes to reliability, with the 2014 Range Rover having an average of 179 problems per 100 vehicles according to Consumer Reports. And since a Range Rover is a rather high-end luxury SUV with complex electronics, repairs aren't necessarily cheap. There is a reason why Range Rovers are typically purchased or leased new under warranty, and then owners get rid of them once out of warranty. And honestly, that's the best way to own one, when it's under warranty. Just ask Doug DeMuro. He has a well-documented journey of his ownership experience with a Range Rover that was purchased from CarMax with a bumper-to-bumper warranty. I'll link his video down below where he gets into detail about the Rover's repair history. But regardless, people will continue to purchase Range Rovers because they look good, drive well, and there is an element of prestige to them. Third car is the Fiat 500. This car was chosen by my Instagram followers, and if you're not following yet, well then go give me a follow. My goal is to get 1,000 followers by the end of the month. Back to the Fiat 500. I'm almost positive I'll receive some heat from viewers from both the United Kingdom and Europe, as this car is much more common in their countries, and they seem to cherish them too. Here in the US, either new or used, they just don't sell well. It doesn't even matter what model year you choose to purchase. Fiat Chrysler cars have been consistently unreliable, most notably the 500L model. Most common reliability issues being a faulty suspension and the electronics used in the 500, especially when it comes to the infotainment display. Many reports saying that the screen experiences glitches and sometimes becomes unresponsive. But what I think has a bigger impact on sales is not really its reliability but the driving experience. I've seen countless complaints about its rough ride, noisy cabin, non-telescoping steering wheel, tiny rear seats, and a poorly engineered convertible top. It kinda acts like a giant sunroof, and when the top is pulled back, rear visibility becomes an issue. Performance on the Fiat 500 can also be a concern. The automatic transmission never really seems to get the gear shifting properly, according to some user reviews. Several auto journalists have pointed out that the Fiat 500 would work well for urban environments where 0 to 60 miles per hour of 9.8 seconds doesn't really matter, and where having a small car can actually help you squeeze into small places such as parking. If you're looking to travel quickly or to far places with full-size adults in the back, then this car wouldn't be the best choice. You're able to find the Fiat 500 pretty cheap in the used market, as they tend to depreciate as much as 40% in the first 2 years. Most people will fall for the 500's pretty face, unique retro look, and pretty colors, but just know, many that have bought one have said they've regretted it. The fourth car on the list is the Ferrari F355. It was introduced as an entry-level Ferrari in 1994 for the 1995 model year. It's arguably one of the most beautiful Ferrari cars built in the modern era. As beautiful as it might look and sound thanks to its 375 horsepower V8 engine, just know that the F355 is known for being a nightmare to own, operate, and maintain. For one, the exhaust manifolds tend to fail routinely. They start to warp or crack. Some expert mechanics say that they have a 100% failure rate, meaning you'll have to replace them eventually, which could run you around $4,000 to $5,000. Another concern are the bronze valve guides, which tend to fail no matter at what RPM range you tend to drive in. And since weak valve guides can cause bigger and more expensive issues down the road, owners typically tend to change them before they go bad, which can cost you around $9,000 to replace. Also keep in mind that the F355 requires a routine engine out service every 3 years. Yes, you heard me correct, engine out. I'm sure you're wondering why the engine needs to come out. Well, because of the timing belts, which cannot be accessed without the engine being pulled out. The engine out service will run its owners around $10,000, assuming nothing else is wrong with the car at the time of the service. I came across a video by a channel called JR Garage that shows the engine out service totaling nearly $38,000 in the first 1,000 miles of ownership. So if you guys want to check it out, I'll link it below in the description. And of course, most recently, I'm sure you guys have all heard of Hoovy's F355 that suddenly went into flames when Parker from Vehicle Virgins was driving it. And it's not the first F355 to burst into flames. Just recently in the UK, a parked F355 shot up into flames for no apparent reason. The fifth and last car you'll regret buying is the Chrysler 200. What a surprise, another Fiat Chrysler car on the list. The Chrysler 200 was supposed to be Fiat Chrysler's first big success with the brand. It actually sold pretty well at first, but as time went by, it was apparent that the model was plagued with issues, in particular to the 2015 model, receiving the most complaints. Most complaints revolving around both the electronics and the transmission. Apparently, the Chrysler 200 comes equipped with a horrible 9-speed transmission. Most issues documented talked about the transmission slipping frequently while driving. While driving, the transmission would slip from drive or reverse into neutral, causing frustration when commuting. This issue typically ended up in either having to get the transmission rebuilt or replaced at its early stages. I'll tell you this, I did drive one before, and while I didn't experience the transmission slipping, I did in fact notice that the transmission rarely knew which gear to be in. Sometimes I'd be stuck in high revs while just cruising, and other times it would take forever for the transmission to downshift when I floored it. Me and other reports also line up when it comes to the 200 having an uncomfortable ride, excessive road noise, and a small rear seat entryway due to the slope of the car's roof. But don't take my word for it. The Chrysler 200 made Consumers Report's list of worst cars in 2015. Real quick guys, before you leave, if you enjoyed the video, make sure and hit that like button. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, that way you don't miss out on my next video. Also, if you think I got this list wrong and there should have been another car on the list, make sure and comment below and let me know what that is. As always guys, thanks for watching. Till next time.